Hi, this is Dan Smith of DPS Legal Counsel, and welcome to today's video episode of Legal Scrubs and podcast. Today I want to talk about 5 things that doctors can do right now to improve their cash flow during this coronavirus epidemic and basically U.S. economy lockdown. 5 things they can do to improve their cash flow now or to prepare for the eventual return to normalcy or some kind of normalcy after the lockdown ends. So 5 things. First, if you are a provider to Medicare patients, and let's say you have been providing patient services to Medicare patients within the previous 180 days, if you haven't yet looked into the new CMS program that allows for advanced or accelerated payments to you as a provider to Medicare patients, you need to look into it. Over the past week or so, CMS has paid out, I believe it's $51 billion in advanced or accelerated payments to providers, healthcare providers providing services to Medicare patients. Some of those are hospitals, some of those are physicians. But if you are a Part B provider, a physician providing Medicare services to your patients, you're eligible. There are a few specific eligibility requirements, but for the vast number of doctors, you're going to be, if you provide services to Medicare patients, you're going to be eligible for this program. If you want to improve your cash flow right now, perhaps you're not seeing as many patients, perhaps your office is essentially quarantined and shut down, you can request an advanced or an accelerated payment from CMS for a 3-month level of Medicare payments based on your historical billing and claim history. You can request an accelerated or advanced payment for essentially a 3-month level of Medicare claims. And right now, CMS is processing those at a rapid pace. Up to this point, they've paid out already about $51 billion in advanced or accelerated Medicare payments to either hospitals, Part A providers, or to doctors, Part B providers. And so what you have to do is you have to make a request through your Medicare administrative contractor, essentially for a 3-month level of Medicare claims that you historically have been making, and the lag time now for getting cash in hand payments on this advanced or accelerated request is about 4 to 6 days. So you can get a big chunk of money in now as an advance from CMS against what your future Medicare claims might be. Again, this is essentially a loan or an advance from CMS. It's not money that you don't have to repay, but the way it works is this. If you make your request and you get your money in hand, typically, like I said, within 4 to 6 days of making the request, you have the money in hand. Then after 120 days, essentially 4 months after you've gotten your advance, CMS will start recouping the money that they advanced you based on claims that you file with CMS after that 120-day period. So essentially you get your money up front now, you continue to bill Medicare over the next 120 days, getting those payments in, and then after that 120-day period, that's when CMS is going to start recouping that advance payment you got now. So that's a great thing. If you haven't done it yet, that's the first thing you should do, is to look into making the request with the Medicare administrative contractor that you use to seek this advance or accelerated payment from CMS. Number 2, you need to look into the Paycheck Protection Program loan that is an SBA guaranteed loan program under the CARES Act that was recently passed by Congress and signed into law by President Trump. Essentially, this program made available loans that are SBA guaranteed in the amount, right now it's $349 billion that's available. Congress is talking about increasing that by another $250 billion if they can ever get on the same page. But at the present time, it's $349 billion. A lot of that money has already been earmarked to people who have applied and have gotten their loans approved through the program. Some of the money has already gone out, but it's better late than never, and it's not too late if you haven't done this to look into making a loan request through your bank. This is done through your bank, not directly to SBA. Through your bank, make a loan application for the Paycheck Protection Program loan. Now, the way it works, without going into a full-blown explanation, which would take too long on this video, is that if you can get a loan essentially in an amount equal to 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost. So if you add up all your payroll cost and you get a monthly average of what that amount is, multiply that by 2.5, that's the amount of a loan amount that you're eligible to seek under the Paycheck Protection Program loan program. Now, if you are sole proprietor or you're self-employed, you can also include in this calculation your net self-employment income. So if you have a monthly average net self-employment income, you can add that into the wages you're paying to your employees. Now, there is a cap on how much annual wages you can take into account in determining that monthly average, and that's $100,000. So if you pay someone $120,000, you can only count the first 100,000 towards your monthly average. So in this example, if you had only one person that you were taking into account in determining your payroll costs, and that person was getting $120,000, rather than your monthly average being $10,000, it would actually be $100,000 divided by 12, or $8,333. So, and then you would multiply that by 2.5. But anyway, that's the amount that you are eligible to borrow. You have to use it for payroll costs, paying wages, paying yourself on net self-employment income. You can pay it for rent, you can pay it for utilities, you can pay it for interest on your business mortgage, not the principal, but interest. And the amounts, if they're paid and go out for these approved purposes within the 8-week period after you borrow the money, the loan is essentially forgiven. You have to prove that you spent it that way, but with the proper documentation, and you can prove that, the loan is essentially forgiven. In other words, rather than being a loan, it basically converts into a grant that you don't have to pay back. So it's a great thing to look into. Again, you have to go through your own bank to get this loan. So I would suggest, if you haven't done this so far, if you have a business account, a loan account, line of credit with a particular bank, talk to your banker about applying for the Paycheck Protection Program loan. That's number 2. Number 3, if you haven't already, you need to look into either adopting, or if you've already adopted, expanding your use of telemedicine or telehealth. It's clear that after this coronavirus pandemic, people are going to be less, at least for a while, they're going to be less likely to want to get out in public, go to hospitals, maybe to doctor's offices, go to a lot of places in public. And even now, of course, that's not feasible during the quarantine or lockdown. So if you're not using telehealth or telemedicine with your patients, you really, really, really need to look into that, because not only can you use it now, you can also use it in the future when people have gotten used to doing this and are really going to want to do more telehealth or telemedicine. It's a big game changer, I think, in the way that healthcare services are going to be provided going forward. Telehealth, telemedicine is going to be bigger than ever. So if you haven't done it yet, look into telehealth or telemedicine. Number 4, now is a good time to, if you're looking at improving your cash flow, there are 2 ways of looking at that. One, you can increase your revenues, obviously. The second way is you can decrease your expenses. So now's a good time, if you have some extra time, to look at what you're spending your money on. Look at your leases, look at your equipment leases, your real estate leases. Look at your equipment purchases. Look at your supplies. Look at your vendors of various types. Look and see if there are ways and places that you can reduce your expenses going forward. It's just a prudent thing to do now when you have a little time, perhaps, a little more time than usual, to look at how you can streamline and maybe reduce some of your expenses going forward. And fifth and finally, this is a time when a lot of people have more time than usual to do personal things because maybe their office is closed, their businesses are closed, their practices are not as busy, and they're spending more time at home. This is a good time that you can look into things that you know you've been putting off, either having contracts reviewed, maybe doing some estate planning, doing some asset protection planning, that you can look into now so that when you get busy again, which will happen sooner rather than later, and things will get back to normal, you won't have to take away your productive practice time on things that you could be doing now on the personal levels, like estate planning, asset protection planning, looking at your contracts that you practice to see if they can be improved. And so that's a fifth suggestion, is use your time wisely now that you have more of it to do things that you don't want to spend your time on once things get busy again. So those are 5 things you can do not only to improve your cash flow now, but to improve your cash flow once things get back to normal. All right, I hope that helps. You're welcome to send me a comment or to ask me a question at any time. If there was anything in particular you'd like me to discuss on these Legal Scrub podcasts and videos, let me know, and I'll be glad to look into that. And until next time, we'll see you next time on Legal Scrubs.